They had Crocs?
Yeah.
Like you could buy Crocs.
They were Croc Charms.
Oh. Wait. What? Like you bought them or they came in like Happy Meals?
Happy Meals.
Yeah, but doesn't that
They were
just
like
apply
Kid
to
Toys and
very
Happy
specific children?
I'm that child.
Anyways, hi everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the episode that was spoiled, but she still doesn't know much about. I'm your host. Yes. I'm not introducing myself. You should know at this point. You came to this channel, you should know where you are. She can introduce herself. This isn't her channel.
I'm the other person who's here every week.
Yeah. Well, not every week, but I digress.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. You've missed 2 weeks.
I'm eating popcorn crumbs.
Okay. Anyways, I want to go over our weekly obsessions, and I don't remember who went last time.
I don't either.
I
think it was me last time.
I think
yeah,
you went
sorry,
last
I think
time.
you start.
Well, to no one's surprise, it's 2 songs this time.
Oh.
Bold, am I? I know, it's surprising. And I mean,
are they American in origin?
No.
Yeah. That's the real test.
Listen, sometimes they are, okay?
Not
sometimes. But to be fair, the reason why I like these 2 songs is because they don't sound like the stereotypical what they come from song. So the first one, first one's a tie-in to old pod lore, in the sense of it's from a previous Luna member.
Oh.
It's from.
I'm not gonna remember which one you're talking about,
but it's from Eve.
I'll pretend.
It's from Eve. She was one of the 2 that didn't get with a group afterwards, so she's a solo artist now. And this is her second EP, and the title track of it is called Viola. And I don't know why, because I don't think it's mentioned anywhere in the song, nor did I find any like semblance of what it could mean through lyrics, but that's what it's called. And so technically speaking, by that, it's a K-pop song, but it doesn't really sound like a K-pop song. It kind of sounds like an indie electronic song. And I'm gonna say more names that you're not gonna know, but it kind of sounds like a mix of AKA Twigs and a tiny bit of Caroline Polachek.
That's a lot of words.
I know you love those artists, but it sounds like a mix between them, and the hook for it is really catchy. And it's not all in English. The hook for it's in English, and it's very repetitive. She literally just says, "I just need some space," over and over again.
You like repetitive songs, I've noticed.
It depends on the song. But this next example that I'm going to give isn't a good example for me not liking repetitive songs, because the second song that I've been listening to literally right after that song is one by this girl named Ami Suzuki. And it's from like 2008. It's really old. I say really old. That's not really old. It's old comparatively.
Our warped sense of time.
And it is here's the connection to last week. It's technically produced by the same person that made my last weekly obsession, who's the main producer for Capsule. It's produced by the same person, so it has a similar sound, but it is the epitome of like a dance track. It's called Free Free. And it's the epitome of a dance track where literally she's just saying almost nonsense most of the time.
Oh my god.
She's basically just saying, "I want to be free, set me free, I believe you make me free." And it's like, I don't get, I believe in you and that you believe you're gonna be set free, but at the same time, I don't think you even know what you're talking about. But I feel like that's a very common thing that happens with a lot of this producer's songs, because he typically writes the lyrics too, and so he'll write like almost nonsensical English lyrics. But you know what? It's catchy, and that's what matters to me. And yeah, it's instead of like a typical like bubblegum J-pop song, it is a hardcore like thumping in the club type of song, but like from 2008. So like imagine what an electronic club sound would sound like in 2008. No. That's more like 2010s. That's about when Skrillex came out and everything.
Okay.
I'll have to make you listen to it. I don't think you'll like it, but I'll make you listen to it. So yeah, those are the two things that I've been playing probably since like Tuesday or Wednesday. What about you? Don't say it's the same thing.
I don't even remember. I think I had a weekly obsession last week. I think my weekly obsession was my One Piece live action rant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't count as like
No.
well, it's not the same thing. Anyways.
I feel like I have more obsessions than you, and that's surprising.
No, it's not that. Well, I mean, you have a wider variety of obsessions. I have stronger obsessions, I think, than you do, but they're the same things.
It's like trying to get shitty into new music.
Because honestly, I think the only thing I can think of as my quote unquote weekly obsession is the fucking drama that's been happening, because it's the only constant that's been this week.
Oh, you mean the thing? The thing?
Yes, the thing.
Wow. I mean, you're not directly involved.
I'm not directly involved.
But you feel directly involved.
I do feel directly.
Proximity. I mean.
So that's kind of the main thing that's like been.
You're always obsessed with drama as long as it doesn't involve you.
I do enjoy some like secondhand drama.
Because then when it involves you, you get tired.
I don't like the effects of it on other people, but I like hearing about it because it's like, what the fuck? I'm sorry.
You're her obsession. I hope you know.
You are my obsession.
In such a foul way. I mean, I would say
making you feel better.
That's not true.
Although I think I know what next week's obsession is probably gonna be.
What?
Probably Wizard 101.
Oh God.
Video explaining the lore, and it's 3 separate videos of someone who's never played Wizard 101 and has decided to play it and explain the convoluted lore that is in this game. And apparently, and I learned through this video that it's on Steam. So I'm probably gonna fucking, instead of downloading it again from the actual like launcher or whatever, I'll probably just download it on Steam and start playing it again.
Do you even remember the logins to your old accounts?
I have them somewhere. They're not hard to figure out.
Well, no.
They wouldn't be hard to guess.
If they're the same things that you always went with.
I mean, I was playing Wizard 1 when I was like 8 or 10, so.
Oh dear God. That was your childhood.
Yeah. Sarah Star Song.
Sarah
I still
Star
love that
Song.
name though. Mm?
The stars, they're singing.
They are. My little fire wizard. My fire balance wizard.
Balance or power? Wait, what did you say?
Balance. I was mainly fire, and then my second school was balance.
What is balance?
It's hard to explain. It's more of a support type magic.
Is this when you're gonna send me those hour-long videos? I wouldn't be able to watch them.
You wouldn't watch them. Why would I send them to you when you wouldn't watch them?
Anyways, okay, let's talk about the topic of which you semi know what it's about. I specifically wanted to have an episode where we talked about school, mainly high school, but you can dip into childhood more, trauma.
Oh boy. Specifically
experiences, because I don't think I've ever fully recounted on stream my leadership camp experience, which I feel like has multiple parts to it that I could like go in depth about. But I want to know like if there's anything, maybe not of the exact same nature, but like to a similar nature to you that you might have ever had.
How personal are we going?
Well, mine's gonna be semi-personal. It involves people I don't talk to anymore. And I specifically have a rant involved about what happened there that I was very frustrated with at the time.
I mean, I know for a fact, I can't say I know for a fact. I'm 99% sure my mother does not watch these streams or know they exist, so I can probably
duh.
talk about a lot of mine.
I mean, is it all revolving around your mother?
A portion of them. So.
Okay, well, I can think. That's the thing. I feel like the leadership camp in and of itself is going to take up the entirety of what I have. So I feel like whatever smaller ones you have, you can fire them away.
I mean, when you say high school trauma, the main thing that comes to mind for me is specifically senior year. COVID was kind of settling down by this time.
Yeah.
And
you were a baby of COVID.
I was. Oh, I wasn't a baby.
You were a baby of COVID. Little did you know, Sarah's actually like 4.
No, I was doing theater. I was working on the musical, the spring musical.
What was it?
It was 25th annual Putnam Counting Spelling Bee.
That was the musical?
Yes.
Hold on. Wait, hold on. There's a musical about a spelling bee?
Yes.
Okay.
Listen,
Proceed.
it's actually it's a fairly well-known musical too.
Yeah, but I'm not a theater guy.
I know. So that's what's funny is because like I know Faye knows what I'm talking about. But I was doing my little sound booth stuff, and this was at the peak of my depression. Well, this was maybe not my peak. This was like the ramp up of my depression, and I suck at homework. I hate homework. And undiagnosed ADHD doesn't help. And so I was in this advanced English class that I chose to take because it would give me a college credit. And I at the time was like, I'm going to go to college, so and I wasn't doing bad necessarily in the class, like material wise, but I wasn't doing any of the homework.
Material girl.
And my teacher was expressing her concern over this, and it unfortunately came to a head when she emailed my mom about it. And so I'm just sitting doing theater stuff, and I get a text from my mom saying, "Call me now." And I see the email, and I immediately starting to have a panic attack. And I'm like, "Can I go talk to my guidance counselor first or anything?" And she's like, "No, call me now." And so I leave the theater, and I'm on the phone with my mom, and she's like ripping into me. I'm having the worst panic attack of my life. I genuinely felt like I was dying, and I was not aware of my surroundings because at some point during this entire ordeal, my friend came up to me. I had no idea he was there until I like kind of calmed down a little bit, and I'm hunched over on the phone, and I'm like pulling at my hair. I feel like I'm about to throw up. It was awful. It was god fucking awful. And I remember mom specifically saying, "You can't be having one of your little panic attacks right now." And it was awful. And eventually I think my teacher maybe came out, or someone came and got me. I don't know, really. I can't remember that part. Because she was also saying like, "Oh, we can't have you, if theater's gonna be so much of an issue, we can't have you doing theater then." And theater was kind of all I had at the moment because band was over. And so all I had performing arts, and I wasn't in chorus this semester because of how they decided to do classes my senior year. So the only performing arts I had at the time was theater.
That sound booth was her home.
It quite literally was. And so eventually they were like, because my guidance counselor was still there, luckily, because this was probably near the end of the school day, and so I went to the guidance counselor, and they were asking me all these questions because especially my theater teacher's probably recounting some of what she just witnessed, and they're like, oh shit, something's happening in this 17-year-old's life, and who knows how long it's been going on for. And my poor English teacher, like, it's technically her fault, but also I don't blame her either, because she's just doing her job.
Blame the bitch.
No, but she was really sweet too.
Blame the sweet bitch. That's how you get
could tell how guilty she felt, because she was like, I didn't know this is what would happen. And she even said, like, the main reason I'm worried is because you have the big test coming up because of, I won't get into the specifics of how our system worked, but there was a really big, it was a little bit. It made sense, but it was complicated. And she's like, there's the big test coming up, and I want you to be prepared. I don't want you to just flub it because you haven't been doing anything. And I'm like, I feel plenty prepared for the test. I told her this. I was like, I might not be doing the homework, but between, like, the little bits of reading I have done and the discussions we do in class, I know everything that's going on in the book. I can tell you everything about it. Like, and so I'm not worried at all for the actual test. And we had to bring my mom back on the call, and she's a sweet little angel on the call. Just a concerned little parent. And they have to be like, they have to, like, almost negotiate for me to stay in theater.
It becomes a hostage situation.
I felt like
You're like, I don't want to be here right now.
Because I'm sitting there, I'm fucking drained. I've just had what felt like a life or death experience. And I'm drained, and eventually they're able to convince her to let me stay in theater. And they're like saying, we can see how important this is for her and everything like that. And so they're trying, and like, my theater teacher was telling me to text her when I got home, and my therapist helped me, not my therapist, my guidance counselor helped me get a therapist through the school, and because they were like, Jesus Christ, what's going on with this kid? And I remember driving home that night, and I genuinely considered just spending the night in my car, because I couldn't, the idea of walking into that house and having to face my mother, even just for a moment, freaked me out so fucking bad. And like, I remember I was sitting in my car really having to pee. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just go somewhere else, and maybe I'll just spend the night in my car. But eventually I got myself out of the car, and I just walked straight to my room.
You peed in your room?
No, I did go to the bathroom, and then I went to my room, and
okay.
I probably passed the fuck out. That's the main thing I think of when I think of high school trauma. So.
See, I mean, it counts, I would say, but when I meant it, I meant like things related specifically to like things that happened at school because of school, not necessarily. Like, for instance, like things about me.
I know a variety of things, yes.
In general. But there was many a times where it was just weird things, but I feel like the only reason I call it traumatic is because of the sheer amount of things that happened within quick succession that I couldn't escape from on that trip. That's why that was a traumatic experience. And also just the reasoning for it was also really stupid. Because the only reason I even went on this stupid leadership camp, this wasn't even when I was in high school, technically speaking. This was back in 8th grade. So it was middle school going into high school. And technically speaking, they normally didn't allow middle schoolers on this trip. It normally was high schoolers only, but this year they changed it for some reason. And they allowed...
What a regret that was.
Well, they allowed literally just 8th graders extra. They didn't allow 7th graders. So people that were going into high school could go onto this trip. And so I only went because I was being bribed with the prospect of a new phone. Not as in a phone that I have never had a phone at this point in my life. It was a new, and it wasn't, okay, I say new phone. I was being bribed with an old used phone. It wasn't new. It was a hand-me-down from my dad. It was a very chunky thing. It was like a really old iPhone, like one of those ones that look like a brick, and like if you threw it at someone it would probably knock them out. But it was one of those, and I was promised that if I went to leadership camp, which I don't even know why they called it that, thinking about it now, that I would get this phone once I come back, and they would like pay for the plan and everything, and I would just have a phone now. So I was like, cool, tight. Going into high school, might as well. It's not like I had that many friends in middle school, especially because of the whole class structure that we had. But I had like maybe 2 or 3, probably 3. About 3 friends at the time that I would actually consider like friends within my class.
Do I know one of them?
You probably know a couple of them. Okay. Not by name, maybe, but you probably will at least be like, I've seen you. Don't worry, I'm not friends with them anymore. You don't need to remember.
Oh, I know. That's one of the reasons I'm asking. I know. You're not friends with anyone from high school, are you?
No. Which, you know, funny thing, I can attribute possibly to this entire trip because of stuff that happened. But so I was bribed with the phone, and technically speaking, the whole reason that my mother, because she was the main one that wanted me to go to this trip, wanted me to go was essentially for social networking. That's why she wanted me to go on this trip. She wanted me to essentially meet a bunch of people that I would be going to high school with and hopefully make friends. And that didn't happen, really.
Yeah.
Like, the most I can say that happened is they all knew me as the kid with the gimpy leg at the end of it, but like, it's not like we were friends.
If it makes you feel better, for a lot of my band career, I was known as the girl who sprained her ankle freshman year before the first game.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I, at a certain point in the camp trip, became an unsung hero, essentially, because I went through an entire hiking experience with an injury that I was basically forced to either cope with or be air-vac'd out of a forest. So, regardless, so basically, it's called a leadership camp. The premise that they did, even though this is complete and utter bullshit, is that it's supposed to teach you the skills of leadership and being the head person of making decisions and everything. We didn't learn squat about that garbage. What I learned a lot of things, but they were life lessons that I needed to learn that had nothing to do with what they were directly trying to teach me. So I
learned to fend for myself.
In a way, but also not, because I completely failed myself in one regard that I'm sure you'll remember this story after I start telling you.
Oh, God.
But it starts out with, we all show up to the campus that we go to, which is technically not even a campus. It's like a church and extra buildings around the church. And we all have our, like, because it's a week-long trip, basically. And it's in North Carolina.
God.
It is in North Carolina. It is a week-long trip. And how are we going to get there?
Or drive up there?
We drive, because they have vans. And do you know how long it is from Florida to North Carolina? It's over 10 hours. And we did it in a day.
God.
We weren't driving, but we were stuck in that car for 10 hours. And so, because we didn't stop until we reached our destination, like in the middle of the night. in our destination.
I mean, you had to stop for like gas and things.
Yeah, like maybe 2 or 3 times.
Did you not stop for any food?
I think once. Once on the way there, once on the way back for lunch. Because then we had something when we got there. And then when I got back is when I was given a Chick-fil-A Sprite. But regardless.
What does the Chick-fil-A Sprite have to do with it?
But I do remember one time when we stopped at a gas station. It was like really close to the end. We were somewhere like in the mountains at this point. But it was like pitch black outside. Because we've been driving for like over 8 hours at this point.
Yes.
And I think we didn't start like in the morning. We probably started like maybe 9 or 10, which isn't like that early. So obviously you're gonna get in pretty late regardless because it's a 10-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at this gas station, and because it's basically a bunch of high school kids that are bored out of their minds because they have been stuck in a van for 8 hours. We all started playing games together in this dark ass parking lot, and it was kind of eerie now that I think about it, because like we were in a place that we probably shouldn't have been, and we were all like hitting each other. It was really weird. Do you know the game Ninja?
Yes.
That's basically one of the main games we were playing, which was essentially let's beat each other up for fun.
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe boys playing it. Yes.
Well, it was everyone. It wasn't just boys or girls, because this was all of the high schoolers outside of the vans. And so they were refueling, they were getting some stuff, and then we were going. Hi, Mikey. And once we actually got to the camp, I kid you not. So it's a leadership camp. It's called the camp. We were prepared for the fact that most of us were going to be sleeping in tents. Not the headmaster and his family, because technically the land that we were going to, which was basically the side of a mountain, was atop the tallest of hills that you can, the steepest of hills that you can think of. It was a cabin that they got to stay in, and it had a bathroom, and it technically had 2 bathrooms, and one was in the basement, and that one bathroom in the basement was the only bathroom that everyone else in the camp had access to. They didn't let you use their actual bathroom. They didn't let you go in the cabin either. It was like sacrilegious. So we get there.
This just sounds like
it's a prison camp.
Yeah.
It really is, because we were all at the bottom of the hill. All of our tents were at the bottom of the hill. It kind of felt like we were being watched over by a dictator, which honestly,
there was a power structure.
That's kind of how it was all throughout high school, actually, with this headmaster. But so we get there. It's probably like 2 in the morning at this point, and we don't even want to eat or anything. We just want to go to bed. So we're told which tents are ours, because obviously none of us are getting our own tents. We're all sharing tents.
Yeah.
And
you didn't have to set up the tents.
No, I don't think so. I think they were set up beforehand, thank God.
Okay.
But on the right side is the girl tents, and the left side is the boy tents. Because I can tell you right now, if there were mixing, people would be fucking. Because I now know things about what people were doing. But I am bunked with, like, I want to say three or 4 other guys in one tent. It's not a small tent, but it's still a tent.
What year is this, by the way?
This is when I was in 8th grade. I'm trying to remember. It would have been probably close to like 2013, 2014. No, maybe 2015. Somewhere in that time frame. I was in 8th grade. All the people I was bunked with were high schoolers. The only people that came, I'm trying to remember if he came. I know for sure that 2 of my friends at the time that I had in middle school came with me. Well, they were going by themselves. I just happened to go, even though I vehemently did not want to. But I'm pretty sure another one came too. I'm pretty sure there was 3 people that I like officially knew, and then everyone else was just people I had either known of or had possibly met in passing during a random event or something. Because they were all in high school, and we went to the same campus, but we didn't go at the same date because we had different days when we would go. Okay. So I would only go during the middle school times, and they would only go during the high school times.
Okay.
So, basically, I bunked with these people. Listen, and I'm dead tired. I just get my sleeping bag, my duffel bag, all that stuff, lay it down, and pass out. It was probably the best sleep I would have gotten on that trip, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that checks out. Especially knowing your current sleep schedule.
Well,
probably the best
I didn't
sleep
have
you've
the
ever
worst sleep schedule then, but even then, it was just more like after everything that had happened that day. Technically speaking, I might have gotten a better state of sleep later, but it was interrupted, which we'll get to. But another fun thing that happened throughout the entire week that you would have absolutely hated was
the spiders.
They weren't spiders. Technically speaking, they're not spiders. They just look like spiders.
They are functionally spiders in my eyes.
They are these little daddy long legs, essentially, that barely even have a dot for a body, but you just see the legs. You know, they're all leg.
By the worst part.
And there were so many of them. And they loved coming out at night. Specifically to hide on your tent. Sometimes in your tent. It depends on if you left the door open or not.
Even worse.
So if you were to ever use like a flashlight, because that's like your only way of seeing, because they didn't give us lanterns or anything, they didn't give us flashlights, we were expected to bring our own light source. And if you were to use a flashlight and like shine it up at like the kind of like transparent mesh bits that you'd see on like a tent, they would be covered in daddy long legs. And they would be like moving around kind of sometimes, but most of the time they're chill. And they physically don't have like a mouth to bite you or anything, so it was never a fact of I'm scared it's gonna hurt me.
Yeah.
But it's more like if I go out in the middle of the night to pee and then suddenly something's crawling on my leg, it could be a daddy long legs or it could be an actual spider that could get me. So, you know, it was like a red herring of sorts that you had to deal with constantly. Because that's the other thing. We had to keep our shoes outside of the tent, and there was like a welcome mat where we would put our shoes, and then when we went outside,
you have to keep it outside the tent?
Because it would get dirty in the tent otherwise, and there was like no room to walk if it was dirty. Like it was covered in sleeping bags and other people's stuff. So we left our shoes out, and sometimes there would be daddy long legs in them in the morning. So literally one of the people that I was bunking with, he would constantly get them in his shoes, and he would just start like clawing them out of his shoes and throwing them at other tents. It was so bad. But that was just a fun little tidbit that happened the entire week. So we got there, I want to say it was a day of travel and that counted as a week, but I don't think so. I think we left on Saturday to get there Sunday morning, like early morning, and we fell asleep and then woke up again. And there was a multitude of things that happened during the entire week, and like a good couple of the things, and I was reminiscing about this actually today when I was eating dinner. Because I took
Were you preparing yourself?
Well, no, I ate dinner because I wanted to make sure that I had eaten dinner by this time. But when I made a grilled cheese and I was taking a lactate pill, and one of the things that my mother had given me at the time, like she had given them, the camp people, like a box of like lactate stuff to give to me for every meal, just in case. And thinking about it now, it's almost like a dystopian future sort of situation where I really was a prisoner, and it's like, here's your allotted pill, sir, for your time, because I would get one on every meal, even if there wasn't necessarily dairy. And also, a lot of the meals weren't that good. The only main ones I remember is when we did grilling and we got burgers and hot dogs, and I was like, thank God, I'll take a hot dog, please, I just want food. And then when we had a pasta night, and I think there was like garlic bread too that they made, so I was like, oh thank God, food. The other times I probably blacked out.
Well,
and we specifically, even for a certain time before we did our giant hiking trip, we made burritos to have for dinner that night when we actually got, because the hiking trip was a 2-day trip where we would camp overnight somewhere and then hike again. And so we made burritos for ourselves to warm up like over a fire. I didn't end up even eating that burrito. I gave it to someone else. I think I survived off of a couple granola bars in spite.
Yeah, that also checks out for you now.
Because I wouldn't like a burrito in that sense. And plus the burritos, I'm pretty sure what I actually even ended up doing when we were making them, the kid who said he would take my burrito, I was like, okay, make it how you want it done. And you get to carry it too, but you get 2 burritos. And he was like, okay. And so that's how that went. But yeah, another fun detail that happened. So I was also sent with bug spray and watch. This makes it seem like I was on a survivalist situation. These were just some things I was sent with. I was sent with multiple clothes and stuff and all that stuff. But I was sent with bug spray and a watch, so I could tell what time it was, because obviously I didn't have a phone. And plus, even if I did have a phone, I would not want to bring it on this trip out of fear of losing it. But
yeah, that's fair.
The watch I had, it would tell me what time it was, so I would know, you know, how many more hours are left until I can leave this godforsaken place.
To be fair, that is what a watch does. So.
And then the bug spray was like 99% DEET.
What does that mean?
DEET is like a bug killer, but it's also a very specific chemical. And the higher the concentration, the better it's going to be at getting bugs away. Because the other thing is, when it was nighttime, it wasn't just the daddy long legs, but the mosquitoes were out to kill. Like, especially me, because I get bit by mosquitoes all the time. And they hate me. And so I was being bit up a storm. But when I used that DEET stuff, they would land on me and die. And I would find dead mosquito carcasses on my arms. Which, gross, but also it works. So... But a side effect of using 99% DEET bug spray is that the chemical was so harsh it started to strip the paint off of my watch.
Oh my god.
Onto my arm, because I was like, what's this weird thing? And I was like, oh, that's the paint coming off of my watch. So it might not have been fully safe, but it was functional. But it smelled atrocious. It was like the worst kind of smell you could imagine. And if God forbid you got it in your mouth on accident. I won't say that I did, but I won't say that I didn't. And it wasn't a good taste.
That does remind me of a different high school story, though.
And basically, there was a couple of activities that we did. They were stupid. There was like a relay race. We're like running through the mud. I was not an active child. I'm barely an active me right now. And so it was, none of this like physical activity was fun for me. And I constantly had to keep reminding myself, you're gonna get a phone after this, otherwise I would just want to die. And there was like all kinds of stuff that we did, and there was like this infamous Dole Whip off of a church in the middle of nowhere. That
what?
Do you not know what a Dole Whip is?
I thought I did.
Like Dole
maybe
pineapples. I don't. It's basically a Dole Whip. It's also something that happens at Disney. It's like, think sorbet, but fruit flavored, like a specific fruit flavored, like there's only one fruit. And like the pineapple Dole Whip would be something that they would make at this like one shack by this church in the middle of nowhere. That was apparently...
Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because you just said the Dole Whip by the church, and I'm like, why is it just on the ground by the church?
No, it was these people that operated it, but it was seemingly in the middle of nowhere. But all the people that had gone to the leadership camp before, which there were people that went every fucking year. What the fuck is wrong with them?
People like camping.
But that's what I keep asking Kester, and yet she keeps going out. But they said it was amazing, and they didn't have pineapple this time when we went. They had peach, but it was still really good. It was probably a good highlight of my trip because it was when we weren't doing anything. And then there was also a portion when we were at a shooting range, also in the middle of nowhere, like on the mountains. I shot at least one shotgun, a rifle, a deagle, a pistol. Like, I learned how to shoot a lot of guns that day. And then on top of that, I remember there's also a specific point in time, because after every night what we would do is we would have a Bible study time.
Yeah, there it is.
And what we would do, we had folders that we were given to go along with the plan of what they were gonna go over that night. And to be honest, it being in the middle of nowhere, the sky was really pretty at night, because like you could see a lot of stars that I normally did not see. But the issue was, it was really hot, it was really humid, bugs were trying to eat me, my bug spray was melting the paint off my watch, and I was extremely tired and hungry because I didn't like a lot of the things they were making for dinner. And because it was already hot and we were sitting around a campfire, that didn't make anything better. But also, because of how many people were there and because they were all expected to go to this thing, the circle of people that were sitting around this campfire was huge. It felt like a cult circle, especially because it was like a big campfire in the middle. But yeah, and I probably zoned out, and literally right after we would do that every night, we would go to bed. So let's get to the meat of the fun part. The hiking trip. The infamous hiking trip. This hiking trip has haunted my dreams. It is known to me as the hiking trip from hell because of the amount of things that went wrong on it. I was later told by the headmaster that had gone and done this leadership camp multiple years in a row now that this was the worst hiking trip he has ever experienced. And that's saying something.
You were there.
You know, I kind of felt like that, but some things I can't really control. So, basically, the hiking trip, it lasted 2 days. We were camping between the 2 days at a select spot because the route was already mapped out and everything. We already knew where we were going. Mm-hmm. And we had to cross like multiple rivers and everything. Like, there was a lot involved with this trip. Got hiking boots and everything specifically for this trip. And we all had to carry like our big hiking backpacks too, with a bunch of stuff in it. And we couldn't drink the water without purifying it first, or you'd get diarrhea. So basically, we drove up to the starting point, essentially, which now that I think about it, I'm not 100% sure if the starting point was also the end point, because we arrived at very different times, but it very well could have been. A lot of things happened in this time frame of 2 days, but we would occasionally rest every couple of hours, because we were basically hiking dawn till dusk, essentially, each day. And it's not just the walking that's annoying, it's the constant changing of going to certain places and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like elevations, and also like going up and downhill, which I later found out, because not even like 20 minutes into me beginning this hiking thing, well, okay, for context, when we went on this trip, we were all assigned a battle buddy. That is what they were called. And it was basically just the buddy system, but with random assignments. And the assignments were based off of houses. So, if you were in a certain house, your buddy could only be in that house.
But you were in 8th grade. I thought you weren't in the houses yet.
No, the houses were all the way back in like 8th grade, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure 8th grade itself was when the houses were introduced.
Okay.
7th grade is when they weren't. 8th grade was when they were introduced, and then the end of 8th grade, when I was going into high school, is when this happened. So they'd been around for like maybe a year. Okay. So everyone had their assigned houses. And I'm pretty sure also, as per usual with any Christian standard, they also, if it had to be same house and typically also same gender. So the girls are always with the girls, you know, in case they had to watch each other pee or something, because that was something you had to do. Oh God, it's bringing back PTSD.
Why did you have to pee with other people?
Well, we'll get to it.
What a piss buddy.
They called them battle buddies. And I'm just going to preface this with my battle buddy. I hated him with a burning passion, like flames on the side of my face, heaving breathless flames, because not even 20 minutes into this hike, I fucked up my knee. And this hike is a 2-day hike. And I just barely started going downhill, and suddenly I'm hurting on one side of my walking things, also known as my legs.
My walking things.
I don't know, like the thing is, this injury lasted probably like multiple weeks after this entire trip, and the doctors that we did end up going to, because it lasted so long, never said there was anything wrong. The most we could equivalent it to is some kind of sprain, but even then it still hurt like a motherfucker to walk. Especially because I was going uphill, I was going downhill, I was going inside water, I was falling on my ass. Like, there was a lot of things that were happening. So 20 minutes in, I fuck up my knee. It's busted, essentially, and it makes me, thank God I had a walking stick at the time, because I was limping at this point. 20 minutes into the hike, I was limping. And I still have 2 days worth of hiking to do. And so, at first...
I'm just imagining in your mind, for the phone.
At first, I'm burying down the pain, because I think it's not that bad. I'm like, I can stick it through. But you know what happens when you continuously use something that's injured is that it gets worse. So it starts hurting more. It starts throbbing, actually. I can feel my heart in my knee. And I tell,
like, that's not where it's supposed to be.
and I go up to the headmaster who's leading this trip, because we're essentially all like with our battle buddies, but in like a single file line of sorts. And I walk up to him and I'm like, my knee is bad. Like, it's not good right now. It's kind of messed up. And the options I was given from this lovely headmaster of mine, who was running our school, by the way, was either I could take an Advil or I could get a helicopter to come and pick me up to the nearest hospital. Now, I want you to think about, in your little 8th grade mind, which of those two things would you have done in front of a bunch of people you don't know? Because I did not want to be the person that had to get helivaced out of the mountains.
I mean, 8th grade me probably would have said, get me the fuck out of there.
Me, being the person I am, said, fine, I'll take an Advil. I hate you. I didn't say that exactly, but that's what I felt like. So I took an Advil, didn't do anything. And my battle buddy, horrible. Battle buddies are supposed to stick together. Piss buddies are supposed to stick together. And you know what he did? He kept leaving me. So I was often on my own, limping through the forest, essentially. And I swear to you, there was a point where it had to have been on the first day, where I was like going through this part that had like a lot of poison ivy around, and I was limping on this path, and I was seeing the faces of my family members flash before me, and I was thinking, this was my last days, because there's no way I'm making it out of this, surely, considering how awful it is to walk and how much walking there is left. And so, another fun thing, I mentioned we had to cross rivers. These rivers were not normal rivers, in the sense of they weren't just like a babbling brook. They were like up to your thighs, sometimes even your crotch, rushing rivers that we had to cross. And the way we crossed them is by making a human bridge. Where basically the most athletic and or sturdy people would go across and stand in a specific spot. They would all hold like a rope together, essentially. And everyone else would then cross that bridge with them, holding onto the rope, and then occasionally holding onto them if like they were about to slip or something, because, you know, river rocks are slippery. And that's how we would make it across these rivers. and then they would go like one by one coming up through the bridge to come back over to the other side. And by the time that I had already, when we got to the first river that we needed to cross, my knee was already messed up anyways. So when we went through, I already thought, oh, this is gonna be horrid, this is gonna be hell. Little did I know those rivers were my only respite, because guess what those rivers also were? Freezing cold temperatures. To the point where my legs were numb when I went across the rivers, and I couldn't feel the pain anymore. So I actually wanted to stay in those rivers, but I was forced to leave because we had to go to the other side. So those were my only times where I felt like my knee wasn't killing me. And eventually we make it to the the campsite that we're going to be at. Essentially, it's not an actual campsite, it's just like a clearing that we set up camp at, to which, yes, we had to set the tents up this time, and they were like body bag tents essentially that barely fit 2 people, and you were supposed to sleep with your battle buddies. So again, hated my battle buddy. But we had to set up this tent together and all that stuff, all that fun stuff. And then everyone else had dinner and I had a granola bar. And we go back to our tents, you know, after pissing in the woods. But the battle buddies always have to come. They don't watch you pee, but they have to be with you to make sure that you don't get lost. Or if you do get lost, you get lost together. Essentially, that's the whole reasoning to them going with you while you go to the bathroom. That's also the main reason why I'm assuming they did the boys and the boys and the girls and the girls, so that, you know, a girl knows what a girl's got going on, a boy knows what a boy's got going on. So all that's happened. We set up the tent. We go into the tent. And at this point, it's probably close to like midnight or 1 a.m. And what decides to roll in but an extremely violent thunderstorm?
Oh my god!
That not only is making extremely loud thunder and lightning all around, but it's raining so hard, and these shitty little tents are so bad that it's basically getting extremely wet in the tent. There's puddles of water that I'm essentially sleeping in. And there's no way I could go to sleep either because it was really windy and it was blowing the tent around. And it's like that for probably at least 3 to 4 hours. I don't know. I was like not really asleep. I was kind of like falling in and out of consciousness, but not sleep, because I would always get woken up again by, you know, the cold water, because the rain also mimicked the rivers in being freezing cold. And we were in our soggy sleeping bags in this soggy tiny coffin tent, essentially. And by the time morning comes around, we can't leave where we are because the river that we crossed, that we need to cross again to go to the next place, has been flooded by the rain. So it is now extremely dangerous to cross it, and we have to wait for it to calm down. So we have to wait like a couple of hours at that camp. All the while, I am questioning why I'm here. Why did I?
That airbag's looking pretty good right now.
Is that phone worth it? And I mean, I'll say now, it was not, but
well, hindsight, you know.
Eventually the river calms down. We start hiking to our new destination, which we're basically going to go to this giant, what I can only equivalent to a radio tower, but it's not because it has a platform at the top of it. It's like a lookout tower, kind of like what you'd see for like fire watch people or something, like at the top of a really big hill, essentially, like a hill that to get up to that top of the hill is a hike in of itself. It's basically a miniature mountain, and the tower's on top of that miniature mountain. So yet another uphill climb that I have to do by myself, essentially, because my battle buddy keeps looking back at me from like 50 meters in front of me and saying hurry up, while I'm like dying, like out of breath, limping up the steps. It's bad. But we eventually get there. We
Your
look
battle
around.
buddy was a battle hindrance.
Well, no, because that implies that he was even doing anything, which he wasn't.
Well,
So
battle observer.
we look around at the top of the tower, because you also have to climb stairs to get up there. And guess what you see? The top of a bunch of mountains. Ooh boy. And then guess what we do from the top of that tower? We start rappelling down it on a rope.
Why?
Because we can. And so everyone gets in line to do it. Not everyone does it, but I decided I'm already here. If you drop me, I think that would be a wonderful way to end my suffering, honestly.
Just a mercy.
So I get hooked into this entire strap, and I like start getting lowered down, and I'm like, wow, I wish they would just let me fall. And then I eventually make it to the ground. I unhook and everything, and we're on our merry way after a while. And then I think at some point there's this because there were chaperones that came with us too. There was like a solid number of chaperones. And one of the people, the dad of someone else who came, he went ahead of us on the trail, and there was like this, like, I guess it was a bee's nest, and it was in the middle of where the trail was, and we couldn't go around it. So what he was trying to do was move it off the trail so we could move around it, but he ended up getting swarmed by bees and like having a really bad reaction to it, where he had to sit out for a decent amount of time. And I'm thinking, so you get to sit out, but I don't get to sit out. And that's also the first time I think I ever got stung by a bee, of which I was told the first time doesn't matter, but the second time is when you'll learn if you're allergic. So I think I only got stung once, so I'm still due for that second sting someday.
I've never been stung by a bee.
I mean, it feels like a sting.
I got stung by a wasp once, but...
Well, we'll get to the wasps. Actually, no, I guess it was bees too. I don't know. I didn't look, because to be honest, out of sight, out of mind at that point. But we move on from that situation. It's now becoming relatively dark outside, and we're still hiking, because at this point we're in the final stretch on our second day, and we're trying to make it all the way to the end point, which again could be the first point that we stopped at. I genuinely don't know, because it was dark by the time we got there anyways. But I'm tired. We're all tired, but I'm very tired. Like, think of how tired I am at that point. Basically compensating with one half of my body because my battle buddy's a schmuck. So here I am, walking in a single file line, and it gets to a point where we're now kind of like on the side of a mountain, but like a very steep mountain, and the path that we're taking specifically only allows for single file lines, meaning it's that narrow.
Oh boy. Okay.
And to the left of you, you start tumbling into a valley, basically, and you would probably die. Like, you would hit a tree and like knock yourself out or something. And to the right is just an extension of the hill, so you can't go anywhere from there. And
the only way goes down or forward.
Yes, and might I remind you, it was heavily storming the night before.
Oh no.
So everything was wet, slippery, and we later learned that the intense winds also knocked down a bunch of trees on that narrow path. Because we had to climb over them. So we're in this single file line. At this point, my battle buddy's fucked off somewhere. He's not even next to me anymore. Good riddance. I don't care anymore. I'm basically just struggling to survive at this point. I think my battle buddy was me all along, because I was my own coping mechanism. And it gets to a point where it's like completely pitch black. At this point, it's probably like 7 or 8, maybe 8 or 9, honestly, at night.
It was called a leadership camp because you learn to be the leader of yourself.
Because you learn to be your own leader. And it's pitch black outside. But we know from, you know, getting on the path slightly before it turned to like dusk, that we're on a path where to the left of us is certain death and to the right of us is a wall. So we know the only way is forward, otherwise we'll die. And at some point during this point, like, this path is like the final bit where it gets so challenging and so annoying, not because I'm tired, but because it's pitch black. There are these blackberry bushes that have thorns on them that are in the way of the path that you have to duck under and everything, and so they're kind of like scratching you this entire time. And I remember, I think one of my friends at the time, she had like her eyelid scratched at one point.
Oh my god.
Because they were just thorny bushes that we had to wade through on this single file path. And then at some point during it, we start to hear screaming from the back of the line, because I'm not at the back of the line. I'm probably closer to the middle or the front. Which is surprising considering my medical condition at the time. But we start to hear screaming into the dark valley that's echoing throughout the valley because, you know, it's a giant valley. And we don't know what's happening, but something's happening near the back that we don't know about. And so eventually a message gets passed up from screaming people who are now all rushing, like running, and I'm slow, so I can't go fast, but they're trying to make me go fast, that there have been bee attacks. Bee attacks in the back lines, basically. Where something happened and suddenly now, like, the last fourth of the single file line is getting swarmed by bees in the nighttime where they can't see the bees. And they're screaming into the void, and it sounded really haunting. And thinking about it now, if anyone was out in those woods and they heard those screams, they probably would have been really freaked out. So that's happening.
How did you not get thrown into the valley?
I don't know. Because there was also points, like, after this has happened where, you know, after we were being rushed forward from the bees, that there were, like, these giant trees in the way that were so big that I couldn't straddle them because I couldn't barely move my right leg very well. And I basically had to have someone else. Thank God for him. He was probably more of a battle buddy to me than my actual one ever was, who actually, like, helped me over these trees because I couldn't get over them. And it was so bad. And it eventually culminated in us eventually... I genuinely thought I was hallucinating at a certain point because I was like, do I see lights in the distance? Is this my time to leave this plane of existence? And it eventually culminated to being like, oh no, those are the lights of the stop where the vans are to pick us up. And so it's now the final trek. And it's slippery, it's wet, it's kind of hilly, it's gravelly. My battle buddy, the path has widened, thank God. So it's not single file anymore, and I don't think anyone's being actively stung by bees anymore. And I don't think there's as many thorn bushes that are, like, directly in the path. And my battle buddy makes, for some reason, a round trip back to me, I don't know, to check on me. Fuck him. Like, he didn't do anything. I genuinely, the entire time, in my mind, I was like, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because I wanted to say so many bad things to this man.
Many mantras were learned.
Like, when he was just walking next to me in the final bit, after everything else that had happened where he wasn't there, I was like, I want to push you off this mountain right now. And it eventually culminated to us limping our way, me limping mainly, because no one else got injured that way to my knowledge, to the van at the little parking site. And basically me making a vow to one of my friends at the time saying, I hate everything that just happened and I never want to do anything like this ever again. So yeah, that was, and we came back, and that leads into the story that you've probably heard because I probably told it before. So my knee's still busted at this point, and we get back, it's probably like 2 in the morning. We go to sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night. It's like maybe 4:30 in the morning.
Oh wait, I think I do know this.
Everyone's asleep, and I have to pee really badly. And my leg is busted up. And the only bathroom is at the top of an extremely steep hill. And in my post-hike mind, my thoughts were, I need to get to that bathroom. This is gonna be awful. So I scramble through my tent of multiple people, put on my shoes, probably filled with daddy long legs, and start my trek up, limping up this hill. And it hurt so bad, so bad to move. And I get to about halfway, and in my mind, like I said, my post-hiking mind, that bathroom is the only bathroom that I can go to the bathroom in. I don't think to myself, I can just piss on a tree.
Yeah.
So instead what happens is about halfway where my leg is killing me, I have to pee. Like, I have never had to pee in my life before. I make this bargain with myself, this decision of, you can't go back from this. And I just piss my pants with so much pee. Like, so much. Like, the entirety of my jeans, which I was wearing at the time, are soaked now. And I'm like, oh, this feels so nice. Oh, now I'm covered in urine. So now I'm stuck halfway up a hill, covered in piss, and the bathroom's at the top, and my place of sleeping is at the bottom. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't want to go back to my sleeping bag covered in piss. So I make the rest of the trek up to the bathroom.
No!
I take off my pants and I start scrubbing them under the grubby water from the bathtub in that bathroom, which was full of dead rats, by the way.
Oh my God!
Because they had a rat problem. But I was like, I just need to get the pee smell out of my pants. So I desperately was like scrubbing at my pants. I used some of the hand soap that was by the sink to like really lather it in. And so now I'm wearing basically soaking wet pants that previously had pee all up in them. Still kind of do to some extent, because there's only so much you can do with dead rat bathwater. And I make it down, I get back in the tent, I go to sleep. Soaking wet, essentially, from both pee and water.
The second night in a row, sounds like.
And the next morning, this is so stupid. The next morning, I'm like, I need to get rid of these clothes, because the minute I wake up, what do I smell? Piss. I smell it so badly. It's in my sleeping bag. It's in my pants.
What do you think your little tent buddy's thinking?
That's the thing. I don't think they smelled it, thank God, because it was contained in my sleeping bag until I opened up my sleeping bag. That's when it got let out. And no one else was in there at that point, thank God. So I do my normal thing where I barely take a shower in the dead rat water, essentially. We moved the rats, so they weren't in the bathtub anymore, but that's where they did die. And I take the clothes that I had that are still damp, mind you, and I shove all of them in a trash bag, along with, I think, the inner bit of my sleeping bag, because that's also what smelled like piss.
Yeah. But you're going back this day, right?
No. This was in the middle of the week.
Oh, God.
The hiking trip happened probably from like Wednesday to Thursday. I had Friday, Saturday left. So, I shove it all in a trash bag. And, well, actually, no. What I actually ended up doing, here's the exact thing that happened. So, the basement bathroom has like, it's kind of like a porch kind of way. That's how we got into that area. So it's kind of like a mini garage or something down there that you could get in through like a screen door. And in front of it, there are like lines where you could hang up wet clothes or something. So I took them, I washed them, I then put them up to dry because I didn't want to put like sopping wet clothes in this trash bag. But something that happened as I was letting them dry, no one knew who these clothes belonged to. Is I was just chilling out around there. There was like a swing nearby that I was just chilling out on. And there's some guy came over and he was talking to another guy and he was like, does anyone smell piss? Right in front of my clothes that I was trying to air dry out. And that's when I was like, this isn't a safe space anymore. And I immediately took the trash bag and shoved all of the clothes into it when they walked away. And I stuffed that in my hiking backpack so I didn't have to think about it. And yeah, so that happened. Another fun thing that happened the entire time was at this point I was wearing contacts and stuff. But I had a limited amount of contacts and I didn't have any saline solution. So my contacts were getting extremely dry and I was wearing them multiple days in a row. And these were daily contacts that were not meant to be worn multiple days in a row. And they got so dry at one point that a fly landed on one of my contacts and died. And I had to pick a fly off of my contact and put it back in my eye so that I could see.
Did you not have glasses with you?
I thought they were gonna get broken.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that happened. And then here, funnily enough, this.
How did you not get a disease?
Because I was my own leader. Funnily enough, none of this has to do with the rant that I was mentioning earlier, though, because the rant that I have, oh my gosh. So, I was basically bribed into going to this camp for social networking purposes, right? So, I was attempting to, like, genuinely become friends with people that I didn't know. Surprising for me, I know. But I was making an effort. And what would happen? So, see, this was so annoying. So, way back when, I also had way more social anxiety about talking to people. But I learned a fun trick where it's like, if you want to talk to someone, you make them talk about themselves.
Yes.
Because, believe it or not, everyone, despite what they may say, loves talking about themselves. And if you get them started on something related to themselves, they will go on and on. But the issue I was having, because there was a couple of people that I like started talking to a bit more during the camp trip. And probably by the end of the camp trip, I would say they all knew me, but that doesn't mean that we were friends. Is I would run into these people where I would like try and start a conversation. I would like ask about their interests or whatever. I would ask more things, in-depth details about that. And what would end up happening is they would go on these long tangents and I'd be like, oh my gosh, cool, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then it would stop. So basically, I was learning all of this information about these people. And then they didn't give two shits about learning anything about me. And
me and my date.
About after the third time, I hate people like this, and this was one of the main reasons why it was even more awful on that trip, because basically the only people that I was able to talk to were the people that I came with that I was already friends with, because I tried talking to other people and they didn't care to learn anything about me. So I was like, what's the point of talking to you then? Because I also hate small talk. Oh dear God. I'm the kind of person where if I have to interact with a stranger, I will keep it minimum, or if it's something that I don't even need to talk, I won't talk to them unless I have to, because I hate small talk. And if I am like trying to make a deep conversation with you and I am like asking you questions about yourself and I want to like know more, I would at least expect, even for a courtesy, to you like hit that back at me one time or something. I just want someone to be like, oh, and you? Like, that's all there needs to be. And every single person I was talking to on that trip was the complete opposite of that, where I would like learn about half of their life story and like all the things that they're into, and then they would just stop talking. And so I was like, okay, I give up. After about the third person that happened with, I was like, I'm not even gonna try anymore. And so that's when I started just like gravitating towards only my friends, because like during the beginning is when I started trying to do that, and I got tired of it by that point. And so it became even more annoying and draining because it felt even more like socially isolating, because now I was trapped somewhere that I could not leave and with people that I did not know and did not want to know me. So it was awful. And by the end of the trip, a funny, like a side thing that happened is one of my friends at the time swears that she broke her sternum. She didn't. She was lying for attention because the doctors checked it out later and nothing was wrong. And the entire car ride back, which was just as long as it was before, was basically her pretending to have problems breathing related to this. She might have even psyched herself into thinking it was real, for all I know. It could have been a placebo effect situation where she genuinely thought something was wrong, and so she was having breathing problems. But it got to a point where like the people in the car, like the adults in the car, were telling all of us not to talk to her because then it would do something bad. I don't even know what their logic was behind it, but like she was
wanted her to shut up.
Basically, like they were like, don't talk to her. And so I stopped saying anything. And then when I got back officially with my piss bag and everything, I get to my parents' car and they have a Chick-fil-A Sprite in there, which was the best Sprite I've ever tasted at that point in time, considering the entirety of the week that had just happened. And I think they gave me the phone at home. And I didn't go into super detail as much as I was just telling like certain things that happened over the trip and like the hike part, because that was, you know, the most traumatic. But I essentially was like, yeah, that was awful. I hated every second of it. And because I was not about to be like, oh, it was so fun. Like, no, bitch, I didn't want to go in the first place and I didn't enjoy going. I was right about it. So yeah, and that was all before the first year of high school. And that's how basically everyone from high school from then on that I didn't initially become friends with knew me as the kid that got the gimp leg. And they didn't know about the piss secret though. I kept that tight-lipped for a long time. So yeah, that I would say is my biggest high school trauma. You said one of the things reminded you of a story that you had though.
Okay. There's two stories I could tell that are similar to yours. Well, not to an extent, but
maybe just not as long.
There is the freshman year. So I had a rough freshman year in terms of getting into things. With the sense of I was a music girly, but I was mainly a chorus girly. And chorus was the only performing arts class that I did not get going into my freshman year of high school.
As in you couldn't?
I didn't get it.
Oh.
I don't know if they just didn't have a beginning chorus or if I just didn't get in. I can't really remember, or I may have been a class conflict schedule. I don't know. But honestly, hindsight, thank fuck. Which is its own thing. I could do an entire episode just about how much I hated that chorus teacher. Maybe I'll go into it briefly, but specifically, I didn't know band camp was a thing going into high school. And because I just started doing band in 8th grade. And so I never went to do the 8th grade night at the actual high school that marching band would do because I wasn't in that class. I was in beginning band. And so I planned on continuing to play the trumpet going into high school and even doing marching band, but I had no idea marching band was a thing. So I don't remember exactly how it happened. Maybe my friends who were also in marching band, they were like, hey, where are you? Are you coming to band camp? And I'm like, what? What's happening? And so I arrived to my first day of band camp late. And so we're already doing sectionals. It's like probably almost noon at this point, and I'm just like, I don't know. I know one person here in this section. I know no one else, and I are easily the worst player here. Because I've only been playing for a year compared to at least 2 years for the rest of them. If not more. So it was the first day was the roughest. I mean, then also, marching in August weather was not fun. Or July weather. I think the first one was in July. So that was its own thing. And so I made friends very slowly, and that was fine. Fast forward, school has actually started. And it is quite literally the day before the first football game where the band would be performing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've worked hard, and I was very proud of the fact I wasn't doing great, but I was doing the best I could.
Which is all we can ask of you.
Yeah. Especially considering I hadn't done a physical activity like this for ages. And freshman year, things are going as good as they could. And so it was lunchtime, and the way that the area is that we would sit for lunch, we could either sit in the cafeteria, or we could sit out in the pavilion area. And literally for as long as I was there, all 4 years, I think I sat in the cafeteria for lunch maybe 2 times. I almost never went to the cafeteria unless I needed to for something, because that's where you would go see guidance counselors during lunch or something.
In the cafeteria?
They would have set days where certain years could go and talk to their guidance counselor, because it was just easier to do it in the cafeteria for brief questions. And so one of the things in the pavilion area is it had this little stage almost, and the stage had steps on either side, like normal steps, but in the front had these bigger steps, so you could do a staggering thing with if you wanted to have a chorus or a band playing. And me and my friends the tables were always full by upperclassmen, and we were little freshmen, so we were we're just gonna go sit on the steps, on the big steps. And I was sitting on the step, and the bell rings, and I'm like, okay, gotta go. And I step down, and my ankle forms a right angle, if you will.
A right ankle.
Right ankle. It just, I step on my ankle more than I step on my foot. And at first, I think nothing's wrong. I think, I just kind of twisted a little bit, how sometimes you do if you step on it wrong. And then I took another step, and I just went down. And it was awful. It was awful pain. And I'm just
fall down the steps?
I didn't fall because we were on the bottom step, because it was 1 step, 2 step, and then the stage. So we sat on the bottom step. But we sat with our feet on the top of the bottom step while sitting on the second step. You get me?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm stepping down onto the ground where I could start walking, and that's when it just goes boop. And like I said, I just go down, and my friend is there oh my god, are you okay? What do I do? And the first people who are there are some of the upperclassmen from band, because they know who I am, and they see me just screaming on the ground in pain, and they're like, oh my god. I can't remember a lot of it, to be honest, but I think I am I'm either screaming or I'm sobbing.
Or maybe a bit of both.
And so one of the upperclassmen is by my side, and they're yelling for the band director because they saw him or something. I don't really know, because again, I'm just in pain. I can't comprehend most of what's going on other than hearing Johnson.
Johnson and Johnson.
which is my band director's name. And so next thing I know is my band director's there is like, what's going on? What's happening? And he's taking control of the situation a little bit, sends someone to get the nurse. They get me into a wheelchair. They call my mom, and she takes me to the hospital, which is like right next to the high school, luckily. And they're like, yeah, you sprained or twisted your ankle real bad.
Yeah, you fucked it up.
You fucked it up. It's not broken, luckily, but here's a boot. And so I get home and there's still the Instagram post up of me saying, guess what I did? and it's just a picture of my foot wrapped up.
Wow.
And so I didn't get to go to the football game the next day, which would have been my very first football game as a marching band member. However, it's probably a good thing considering during that football game, a tornado started to form over the stadium.
How long did the boot have to be on?
I honestly can't remember how long I had it on for. But it was a decent amount of time. And I remember them saying, like, I remember specifically the, like, school administrative when my mom was talking to them about, like, hey, what do we have to do about this, because she has classes upstairs, like 3 flights of stairs.
Have someone carry her.
So luckily there was an elevator, so I just got an elevator code and could do that. And if I was late to class, it was because I was hobbling.
Wow.
And they were like, yeah, she doesn't have to come to school on Monday anyways, because we're offering an optional day off because that's the solar eclipse. I was
nice.
like, okay, cool. So I got to, and by then I was wearing the boot, because I just couldn't put any weight on it whatsoever for a couple days. But I was wearing the boot by then, so I got to watch the solar eclipse in a boot. And then I ended up, it was fine, it healed for the most part, and for a while I just didn't participate really in marching band, other than just kind of standing on the sidelines, and I would like play my part while just standing there with my boot. And by the time I actually was able to start marching again, I was doing pretty good, and I was told to take bigger steps backwards to get to where I needed to be in my form. And in the process of doing that, we were in the middle of a run, and I fell again, and my ankle again.
Oh dear God.
It wasn't as bad this time, but I was like, I can't walk on this right now. So I remember having to be carried.
Wow.
I had to be carried out, and they were like, okay, obviously your ankle needs to heal a little bit more because it's very weak at the moment. So we're just gonna put you on pit, which is basically just percussion that isn't drumline, because they just stand at the front of the field and like play marimba. So I played tambourine, triangle, bass drum. I think those are my 3 main ones that I did. Oh, shaker.
I should have gotten a sticker that said Little Miss Accident Prone.
Yeah, but that was the running joke for all 4 years, is that I couldn't be trusted because I had to be wrapped up in bubble wrap because I would keep hurting myself.
It just makes me think that you have horrid shoes or something. You keep.
My mom bought me new shoes specifically for marching band. So.
Maybe that's what it was. It was sabotage all along.
But another marching band, a very quick story, marching band related, is, I think it was either sophomore year or junior year band camp. And I think it was sophomore year band camp because they were doing a bunch of work in the school, so we couldn't be in the school. So we were in the, Catholic middle school, maybe Catholic elementary school that was right by the high school.
You know, the place.
So we would just split up amongst the empty campus that we did not know, and we would break off into sectionals and stuff like that and practice. And again, this is like perfect humidity Florida type thing. And so there's mosquitoes fucking everywhere. And
Literally.
Yeah. And so, and I don't know, maybe there may have been a wasp or something. I don't really remember why, but we were like making sure we had bug spray on. And this one other guy who's a trumpet player, is spraying bug spray, and I don't know. And so what he does, I step away for like 2 seconds for some reason, and I come back, and he's made a perimeter of bug spray around the trumpets, like around where we're practicing. He's sprayed almost a full can of bug spray around us, and it's suffocating.
Like on the floor or just in general?
In
like
the
in the air?
In the air, and so it's suffocating me. Basically, I think I may have been genuinely having a reaction to it because I'm like, I can't breathe. So I would keep making fun of him and saying, you poisoned me. So yeah.
That's what she learned. That bug spray was actually Sarah's spray.
I am a bug, apparently.
You're
the
not
only
the
other things
size
I
of
can
one.
think. Okay. The other things I can think of in regards to like upsetting high school things specifically is freshman year English teacher who I did not like, and I'm pretty sure did not like me. The chorus teacher, God, I hate him. Oh, there was one more, and then this one girl that I absolutely despised. This one girl who made politics her entire personality for as long as I knew her, and I knew her since like 7th grade.
She was your
And
arch
she was
nemesis.
the drum major of the band from sophomore year to senior year.
It's always the majors.
Yeah, it was awful. Like, there was a time where, because I was one of the head officers my senior year in the band, and so usually it would be me, the band captain, and then the drum major, and then the director, and we would have meetings to discuss various things happening in the band. And there was a time where my director called a meeting specifically without the drum major, because it was a topic that he knew she would not be able to handle. And so I was like, Jesus Christ. So
I mean, at that point, isn't that a sign to like get a new drum major?
there were a lot of factors. Our band director, kind of a pushover, honestly. And according to him, because something else happened later on in senior year, and I went to him and I was genuinely like, hey, this shit's not okay, and nothing's happening, and it's very frustrating to see her get away with this again and again. And he told me it's like, because it's her senior year as well, he doesn't see a point in fighting it because she's about to be gone anyways.
Sounds like he needed to go to leadership camp and be his own leader.
It's unclear whether or not he was fired or not after that, because he just announced that he wasn't coming back to direct again.
Well,
the following year.
Oh my gosh, what if they were together?
No, they weren't.
How do you know?
Because my director was actively, my director's wife was actively having a baby.
Oh, that means nothing. Affairs happen all the time.
It wasn't.
You never know.
I do.
You weren't in the bedroom with them, okay?
No!
Anyways. But yeah. I feel like...
I'll talk about the anger that I feel towards my old chorus teacher later.
We could probably do a separate episode on teachers. Just because... Not combined, like, I have both horror stories and like, oh, I wish I still knew this teacher stories.
Yeah.
But a lot of the horror story, well, it depends. I think also you just run into a lot of weird characters throughout your life of like different teaching styles.
You want the opposite of a school trauma story? A really quick one?
Is it a school... For some reason, I can't think of the word that would go opposite of trauma.
It's a school win. It's a school, like, pride moment.
Okay, sure.
Because this happened in, like, 3rd grade.
Okay.
You can tell it stuck with me. Because I remember we were doing a science lesson of some kind, and the teacher asked a question. And it was like a, stand up if you think yes, keep sitting if you think no. And I was the only one who stood up And everyone was obviously like, oh, she got it wrong, ha ha ha. And she was like, and the teacher's like, she's the only one who got it right, actually. And I'm like, fuck yeah. And so the next question, everyone looked at me what to do.
What was the question?
I can't remember.
Oh dear God, you don't even remember what you answered correctly.
It didn't matter.
Oh my God.
It was 3rd grade science. Take a wild guess, you're probably right.
That's so funny. I mean, see, I didn't like. It depends on the subject. If it was but I had a lot of times where in certain classes, especially science classes, if I was the only one within my class that was like actually interested in the topic, I would be the only one answering questions.
Same. It got to a point where 6th grade, I need to also talk about my 6th grade experience at some point because that was probably its own ordeal.
Let me write it down.
But I specifically remember is he had to the teacher had to tell people that I wasn't a robot.
What?
And that I couldn't be expected to get everything right because I was the top student in my class and I was the one who everyone like looked to for answers. I remember I sucked at geography even back then because I remember trying to answer a question about like what mountain range was in a certain area, and I said the wrong mountain range. I think I said Appalachian. It was like Smoky. I can't really remember. And this one kid, we're going to like lunch or something, and this one kid is like, "Wow, you're not really good at geology, are you?" And I just looked him dead in the eyes and I said, "Geography?" And he said, "Oh yeah." Like, okay. All right,
geography
dude.
Too.
I was great at geology, actually.
You had a class for geology in middle school.
No, but we talked about geology a little bit because we had to talk about like different rock formations.
Good rock formation, something to chew on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like rocks.
I know. We all know. Anyways, okay. Well, there's our fun trauma dump session then. Of fun things that happened. Well, they weren't fun, but they were things.
They were not.
They were things. They were.
They were sure things.
And you too can also get to dump your trauma on podcasts for a low price of
letting us know.
Yeah. And scheduling it ahead of time.
For the low price of communication.
Which is very rare these days. Savor it when it happens. I'm looking at you, Faye. Anyways.
I will also accept a crunchy rock as payment.
I will not.
So either or.
Thank you all for coming. I don't know if I'm streaming this Wednesday. I'm assuming so, but I don't know because my current PC situation is complicated. So we'll see. Yeah. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Oh boy.
Oh, Sarah just keeps jiggling.